The descent. The skies darkened first, like an eclipse that refused to end. Dr. Naomi Winters looked up from her laboratory bench at the University of Washington, sensing something wrong before the alarm started. The coffee in her mug trembled, tiny ripples spreading outward. Not an earthquake, something worse. "What the hell?" muttered her colleague, Dr. Hiroshi Tanaka, as they both rushed to the window. Overhead, the Seattle skyline disappeared beneath the shadow of something impossible, a ship that defied human physics, pulsating with violet energy, stretching nearly 3 miles across. The Space Needle looked like a toothpick beneath it. "It's happening," Naomi whispered, her military training kicking in before her scientific curiosity could take hold. 6 years with DARPA's Xenobiology division had prepared her for this theoretical moment, first contact. But nothing had prepared humanity for this reality. The broadcast hijacked every screen worldwide simultaneously. Their image, bulky, armored creatures with segmented exoskeletons and multiple appendages, sent primal fear down human spines. Their message was simple, translated into every major language by their systems. Your species has been classified as Grade 3 sustenance. Harvesting begins now. They called themselves the Voryx, a name humanity would learn to fear within hours. Seattle fell in 26 minutes. Portland in 18. The West Coast burned by sundown. Naomi survived because she understood one thing faster than most. This wasn't a war. It was a harvest. And you don't negotiate with harvesters. 3 weeks later, Naomi huddled in the ruins of an abandoned subway tunnel with 17 survivors. Her once pristine lab coat was now stained with blood, mud, and things she preferred not to identify. Her group called themselves Ghost Makers, a dark joke about their survival strategy. Make the Voryx believe they were already dead. "They're moving east again," said Marcus Chun, a former UPS driver whose knowledge of Seattle's hidden infrastructure had saved them repeatedly. His face was gaunt, eyes haunted. 3 harvester units, headed toward what's left of Beacon Hill. Naomi nodded, studying their makeshift map. "They're establishing a pattern. 3rd sweep this week." "They're getting desperate," said Zoe Reynolds, a college student who'd watched her entire dormitory get taken. "Food's getting scarce." The word food hung in the air. That's what humans were to the Voryx, walking protein sources. The survivors had seen the processing ships, heard the screams. The aliens didn't even bother restraining their livestock. Why would they? Their natural armor made human weapons seem primitive. Their strength made resistance futile. But Naomi had noticed something. "They're changing tactics because we're changing too." Darren Washington, a former Marine who'd lost his right arm in the first wave, looked up. "How so, Doc?" "Their first attacks were chaotic, overwhelming. Maximum casualties, maximum terror. But now they're systematic, methodical. They're acknowledging us as something more than passive prey." Marcus snorted. "Great. Went from cattle to wild game. Moving up in the world." Naomi stood, pacing their small sanctuary. "No, it's important. It means they're adapting, which means they need to adapt. And adaptation implies vulnerability." The group stared at her. Hope was dangerous in this new world. False hope could get you killed. "I've been observing them," she continued. "Their sensory systems are highly advanced but specialized. They track heat signatures, motion patterns, and something else, some kind of electromagnetic field reading. They can't see us like we see each other." "How does that help us?" Zoe asked. "Because," Naomi replied, "it means they have blind spots. Biological limitations. Nothing that evolved can see everything." That night, they tested her theory. The Voryx harvester units moved with terrifying precision, their limbs clicking against concrete as they hunted. But when Darren activated the electrical grid in an abandoned power substation, the resulting electromagnetic pulse made the creatures pause, their appendages twitching erratically. "They're disoriented," Naomi whispered into their salvaged comm unit. "Move now." Marcus and Zoe slipped past the confused aliens, retrieving abandoned medical supplies from a field hospital the creatures had raided days earlier. It wasn't much, some antibiotics, painkillers, surgical tools, but it was their first victory. Word spread through the fragmented human resistance. Old technologies became new weapons. CB radios, modified microwave transmitters, jury-rigged electromagnetic pulse devices, anything that could disrupt the Voryx sensory systems became valuable. By the 2nd month, the Ghost Makers had grown to 63. By the 3rd, nearly 200. They moved between safe houses in a careful pattern, never staying anywhere long enough to establish a heat signature baseline the Vorax could track. They're communicating through ultrasonic frequencies, Hiroshi explained one evening, having survived by hiding in a university boiler room for weeks before finding Naomi's group. He built a crude frequency analyzer from salvage parts. Their ships are constantly sending signals we can't hear. Can we jam them? Naomi asked. Better, Hiroshi smiled for the first time in months. We can hijack them. Their first offensive strike came in the 4th month. The Vorax had established a processing center in what was once Husky Stadium. Humans were herded there, sorted by body mass, and loaded onto smaller ships bound for the mothership hovering above the sound. Naomi watched through binoculars as Marcus led a team to plan Hiroshi's devices, modified speakers that would broadcast at the exact frequency the Vorax used for internal communication. This won't kill them, she had warned the group earlier. But it might drive them insane. When the devices activated, the effect was immediate. The stadium erupted in chaos as Vorax soldiers turned on each other, their weapons, biological extensions of their own bodies, firing indiscriminately. The prisoners escaped in the confusion, many joining the Ghostmakers. They're not invincible, Naomi told the newcomers that night, her voice carrying through the abandoned church they'd temporarily claimed. They're predators who've never met real resistance before. Every predator has weaknesses. A young woman with haunted eyes raised her hand. But how do we win? There are millions of them. Their ships are everywhere. Naomi met her gaze steadily. We don't think about winning yet. We think about surviving, adapting, learning. We become the hardest prey they've ever hunted. By month 5, the Vorax had changed strategies again. They began bombing areas before sending in harvester units. They deployed new weapons, parasitic organisms that could track humans by their breath chemicals. They started using human traders, people who exchanged information for the promise of being processed last. But humanity was changing faster. In rural areas, people had learned to live underground, emerging only at night when the Vorax ships returned to the motherships to process the day's harvest. In cities, resistance groups developed complex communication networks using pre-digital technology the aliens couldn't easily monitor. And in Seattle, Naomi's Ghostmakers had successfully captured a Vorax soldier. The creature thrashed against its restraints, its chitinous exoskeleton scraping against concrete. They'd lured it into an old meat freezer, where the cold temperatures slowed its metabolism. Careful, Naomi warned as Hiroshi approached with a modified medical scanner. Even restrained, it could kill you with one strike. The alien's multiple eyes tracked them, pulsing with an internal light that seemed to reflect hatred, or perhaps fear. What are we looking for? Marcus asked, keeping his distance, makeshift electric spear ready. Understanding, Naomi replied, studying the readings on Hiroshi's device. Every invasion in human history succeeded or failed based on logistics. Supply lines, communication, resources. The Vorax aren't gods, they're organisms. They need fuel, they need to process what they harvest. She pointed to a pulsating organ visible beneath a semi-transparent section of the creature's chest. That's their equivalent of a brain stem. It regulates their vital functions. Their weakness, Darren muttered. One of them, Naomi nodded. But more importantly, she was interrupted by the sound of an explosion in the distance. The creature's eyes flashed brighter, almost triumphant. They're coming for it, Zoe said, panicked. They can track their own. But Naomi smiled grimly. No. They're coming because we wanted them to. Across the city, other Ghostmaker cells activated their devices simultaneously, creating a cacophony of conflicting signals that would scramble Vorax communication networks. They think they're apex predators, Naomi said, watching as Hiroshi collected tissue samples from the struggling alien. But they've never faced a species that refuses extinction. Today we learn, tomorrow we hunt. In the distance, the mothership pulsed with energy, preparing another bombing run. But beneath the ruins of Seattle, humanity was evolving into something the Vorax had never encountered before. Prey that studied its predators, prey that learned, prey that waited. Prey that would soon become the predator. The uprising. Captain Jackson Hayes had never seen anything as beautiful as the Vorax mothership burning in Earth's atmosphere. 5 months had passed since Naomi Winter's Ghostmakers had captured and studied that first Vorax soldier. 5 months of humanity transforming from scattered survivors into organized resistance. 5 months of learning to exploit every weakness of their supposed superiors. Status report, Jackson demanded, his voice rough from years of military service and months of breathing ash-laden air. The old mining facility outside Denver had become command central for Operation Sunburst, humanity's first coordinated global offensive. Beijing and Mumbai cells report green. Lieutenant Rivera responded, her fingers flying across salvaged computer terminals. London signals ready. Cairo and Sao Paulo are in position. Jackson nodded, the scars on his face pulling tight. Before the invasion, he'd been a disgraced Special Forces officer, discharged for excessive force against enemy combatants. Now those same tactics made him a leader. And Naomi's team? On board. Rivera couldn't hide the amazement in her voice. They actually did it. On the cracked monitor, thermal imaging showed a small human team successfully infiltrating the Seattle mothership using a captured Vorex shuttle. Dr. Winters had theorized that the aliens' arrogance would be their downfall. They never expected humans to master their technology. She was right. Tell all cells. Operation Sunburst commences in 30 minutes. Execute as planned. Across what remained of human civilization, resistance fighters prepared for coordinated strikes. Unlike the early days of desperate survival, they now moved with purpose, with knowledge, with weaponry designed specifically for Vorex physiology. Aboard the mothership, Naomi led her team through pulsating organic corridors. The vessel was semi-biological, its walls thrumming with fluid systems and neural pathways. They wore specialized suits cobbled together from Vorex exoskeletons and human ingenuity, masking their heat signatures and breath chemicals. Central processing should be 2 levels down, Hiroshi whispered through their secure comm system. The once timid scientist now moved with the confidence of a soldier, carrying a modified pulse weapon they'd reverse-engineered from captured Vorex technology. Remember the plan, Naomi reminded them. We're not here to kill. We're here to deliver a message. The message was strapped to Marcus's back, a specialized electromagnetic device that would upload a virus into the Vorex neural network, carrying information they'd extracted from their captive. Not just a weapon, but a revelation. Everything humans had learned about Vorex biology, psychology, and technology shared simultaneously with every ship in their fleet. Movement ahead, Zoe warned, now their best scout after months of running stealth missions. 3 soldiers, moving toward the harvesting chambers. Naomi nodded. Avoid engagement if possible. We need to reach the central node. They pressed against the fleshy walls as the Vorex patrol passed, their segmented limbs clicking rhythmically. One paused, its sensory appendages quivering, but the suits held, another testament to how quickly humans had adapted. The central node was more magnificent and horrifying than Naomi had imagined, a vast chamber where thousands of processing tubes connected to a pulsating central mass. Inside each tube, suspended in nutrient fluid, were human bodies in various states of dissolution. My God, Hiroshi breathed. Focus, Naomi ordered, though her own hands trembled. Marcus, set up the device. Zoe, watch our backs. As Marcus prepared their message, Naomi approached the central neural mass, the biological supercomputer that coordinated all Vorex activities on Earth. Up close, she could see it wasn't a single organism but a colony, millions of neural cells working in concert. They're a hive mind, she realized aloud. Not individual invaders, extensions of the same consciousness. Which means, Marcus said grimly as he connected their device, when we hit them with this, they'll all feel it. On Earth, Jackson's teams moved into position. The Resistance had spent months collecting specific minerals that disrupted Vorex sensory systems, planting them at key locations near landing sites and processing centers. When activated simultaneously, they would create a planet-wide disorientation effect, a window of opportunity. 60 seconds, Rivera counted down. Jackson surveyed the room, meeting the eyes of each Resistance member. Some were former soldiers like himself, but most were ordinary people, teachers, farmers, students transformed by necessity into warriors. Whatever happens, he said quietly, remember that today, humanity stops being prey. Aboard the mothership, Naomi's team had been discovered. Vorex soldiers poured into the central chamber, their biological weapons pulsing with deadly energy. We need more time, Marcus shouted, still calibrating the device. You'll get it, Darren replied, stepping forward with the electrical spear he'd modified with Vorex technology. The one-armed Marine moved with surprising grace, his weapon discharging pulses that targeted the alien's brainstems directly. Zoe joined him, using a sonic disruptor that scrambled the Vorik's internal communication system. Hurry! Naomi protected Marcus as he worked, her mind racing. The Voriks were attacking with increasing coordination. The neural mass was directing them, learning from each engagement. It's adapting to our tactics, she warned. Marcus. Almost there, he grunted, blood running from a wound in his side. They hit the primary circuit, switching to backup. On Earth, Jackson received the signal he'd been dreading. Mothership defenses activating. They know. Naomi's team? Rivera asked. Jackson's jaw tightened. No extraction signal. Proceed with Phase 2. Across the planet, resistance cells activated their disruptor arrays simultaneously. The effect was immediate. Vorik soldiers stumbled, their movements becoming erratic. Their ships veered off course, some crashing into each other. Inside the mothership, the neural mass pulsed violently, sensing the global attack. More soldiers flooded the chamber, overwhelming Darren and Zoe despite their advanced weapons. Now Marcus, Naomi shouted as a Vorik soldier loomed over her, its claws extended. Marcus slammed the final connection into place, and the device activated, sending petabytes of information directly into the Vorik's neural network. Not just technical data, but something more profound, human experience. The pain of loss, the strength of hope, the fury of the hunted, the resolve of those who refuse to be exterminated. Most critically, it carried the knowledge extracted from their captive, a fundamental truth the Vorik's leadership had hidden from their own kind. Earth's biosphere was toxic to them on a cellular level. Extended exposure would eventually destroy their entire species through a cascading genetic breakdown. They hadn't come to harvest food. They'd come on a desperate mission to find a cure for their dying civilization, convinced that human biological material contained the key to their survival. The neural mass convulsed as the information spread through the fleet. Vorik soldiers froze in place, experiencing for the first time something their hive mind had never allowed: doubt. We need to move, Hiroshi urged, helping the wounded Marcus to his feet. This ship is going to become very unfriendly very quickly. Naomi shook her head, watching the neural mass pulse erratically. No, I need to finish this. She approached the quivering biomass, her hands steady now. You came to our world thinking we were simple food animals. You never asked, never communicated, never considered us worthy of dialogue. The mass rippled, its color shifting from purple to a sickly yellow, visible distress. We could have helped you, she continued, speaking directly to the consciousness. That's what humans do. We solve problems. We adapt. We create. Instead, you taught us only how to destroy. On Earth, Jackson watched in astonishment as Vorik's ships began rising from the surface, abandoning their ground operations. What's happening? They're retreating, Rivera whispered, incredulous. All of them. The mothership shuddered violently, internal systems failing as the neural mass struggled to process the virus. Naomi and her team barely made it to their stolen shuttle, launching just as massive sections of the ship began to collapse. Did we win? Zoe asked, watching through the viewport as the mothership burned, breaking apart in the atmosphere. No, Naomi replied softly. There are no winners today. But we survived. And they now understand something they didn't before. What's that? Marcus asked through gritted teeth as Hiroshi treated his wound. That some species aren't meant to be prey, she said, watching Earth grow larger in their viewport. And some predators need to learn fear. 3 weeks later, the last Vorik ship vanished from Earth's orbit. The planet they left behind was devastated, billions dead, ecosystems destroyed, civilization in ruins. But humanity had endured. In what once was Denver, Jackson and Naomi met for the first time, leaders of different resistance cells finally able to coordinate in person. They found what they were looking for, you know, Naomi said as they surveyed the plans for the first reconstruction zone. In all that data we sent, there was also the solution to their genetic deterioration. Jackson raised an eyebrow. You helped them? After everything they did. I showed them what humanity truly is, she replied. Not just our ferocity when cornered, but our capacity for understanding. Even mercy. She touched a tablet showing signals from deep space monitoring stations. They're sending transmissions now. Attempts at communication. First contact, the real kind. You think we should answer? Jackson asked, skepticism heavy in his voice. Naomi looked out over the ruins of Denver, where survivors were already building something new among the ashes. Not yet, she said. First we rebuild. Heal. Remember our dead. Then, when we're ready, we'll answer from a position of strength, not as prey that survived, but as equals they should never have underestimated. Around them, humanity continued its most remarkable trait, adaptation. The Earth would never be the same, but neither would its people. They had been forged in the fire of an impossible war, transformed from quarrelsome tribes into a single species with a shared purpose. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, the Vorics retreated, carrying with them knowledge that would spread throughout the galaxies. The small blue world called Earth was not a feeding ground. It was a graveyard for predators who came uninvited.